From the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the College of Journalism and Mass Communications, this is Watch the Media. I'm John Shrader. We welcome GEOFF EXSTROM, one of our outstanding alums, and now going into his fourth year as the Director of Communications, Media, and Broadcast for the Omaha Supernovas, one of the great names in American volleyball. Jeff, thanks.
Thanks, John. Always a pleasure to join you.
I'm going to say great names in American volleyball in two contexts, I believe. Not only is it a great name, Supernova, but you've been in the championship twice in 3 years and won the championship in one of those years. And so you have a little bit of a name and a legacy to live up to.
Yeah, I mean, the expectations are high every season. And, I would say we've lived up to those the last few years. We are now the only remaining original team in Major League Volleyball to have made the postseason 3 straight years. So its goal is always a championship, and I have a feeling our roster this year is going to compete for another one.
So when I say big name and you have to live up to it, for those people listening to us, maybe in Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Carson City, Nevada, let me explain to you very quickly that volleyball is a really big deal in a state that you might think is just a football state. Volleyball is a really big deal here, from 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds. And so you really have to be successful in that environment, don't you?
Yes, very much so. I mean, when you have Nebraska volleyball within the states, and especially now having John Cook as co-owner and GM, those kind of expectations kind of align a little bit, especially the way that we started as an organization winning the title right off the bat. So it's every year it's aiming for a championship. And I mean, that's kind of an organization you want to be a part of, because all of our expectations and standards are high. The on-court products got to match that too. So, as they say, pressure is a privilege.
John Cook, talk about names in the volleyball business. John Cook has been involved now for a couple of years with the team. What is his role? He's a part owner, but what is his role in the team?
Yeah, so co-owner and general manager. So, John's working with Chris and the coaching staff and evaluating talent, for the upcoming draft during free agency, negotiating contracts, evaluating and scouting talent from across the world. Because, I like to describe the pro volleyball landscape is pretty similar to soccer. Obviously not to that extent quite yet, but how everything is built out across the world is very much built like soccer. So, you're evaluating talent all across the world in different leagues. And so that keeps John plenty busy when we don't have him here at Omaha, making appearances everywhere and whatnot. And so he works closely with the staff in evaluating the talent, but also, helping guide the league in regard to rules and decisions, because he's also an alternate governor. So, he's there at those league meetings representing the franchise. And so he is kind of all over the place in leading us, the Supernovas, but also, spearheading some operations and guiding the league on where it should go.
The powerful volleyball around the world has always been sort of in Europe and in Turkey and other places. Are the American teams and leagues competing pretty well with those entities?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at least in the MLV talent wise, you're talking the top half of the world, which, to be honest, within the first few seasons is quite impressive, because when you're battling Italy and Turkey for talent, leagues that have been around for decades and have known to grow talent that is some of the world's best. It's always a tough hill to climb, but I think MLV is, with all the amenities and the competitive salaries and just giving Americans the opportunity to stay and play home, has really elevated just the talent base. And so it's very competitive worldwide right off the bat, which has just given MLV such a great start, being only in the fourth year. And so I think it's pretty impressive to have this level of talent within the first few years of a startup league that really nobody in this country has really experienced before.
Now, Jeff, you mentioned Major League Volleyball a couple of times. Supernovas didn't start out in an entity called Major League Volleyball. Can you, for those of us who don't know actually all the machinations here, explain to us what Major League Volleyball is and how it's been created and sort of morphed?
Yeah, so essentially, Major League Volleyball is an evolution of what was the Pro Volleyball Federation, which was what our league was known for the first 2 seasons. And um, after season 2, our ownership group went off with um, kind of went off on its own to join forces with a couple other ownership groups that have now been part of Major League Volleyball. You're talking the ownership group in Northern California and Washington, D.C., with serious ownership, um, investment, and experience behind them. And so after that second season, our ownership group went off with them. And during that summer, then there was just a coming together of both entities. And the rebrand ended up being Major League Volleyball, the entity that our ownership group started. And so both groups came together, and I think it's really paid dividends, as a whole, because the new ownership groups coming in from the Major League Volleyball side again has serious power behind it, and so now 12 teams strong with great investment behind it and people with serious experience on how to run a professional sports league and team, to continue to build up the foundation and momentum of this league.
So how has it changed? The same number of games? Is it a different kind of a travel groove? How is the logistics of the league changed with the dynamics?
Yeah, so I think this year, league hasn't announced it quite yet, but you'll see just a tiny alteration in regard to number of matches and format, especially for the postseason. So those will be announced, but it's just gonna be a little different just with 12 teams now. I think that playoff field is going to expand a little bit, so you're going to have to adjust to include more rounds for the postseason. But you also have the All-Star match, which I think is going to have a more dedicated weekend this year because that's been very successful. Last season, it grew in terms of viewership on CBS, and so you're really starting to see more, be more proactive in setting together a schedule that's beneficial for the whole league to showcase all these new teams.
Now, let me be the guy who says you're not the only professional volleyball team. You're the best, of course, but not the only professional volleyball team in Omaha, which might raise a few eyebrows around the country. You have 1 and 2 volleyball teams. How do you guys compete with what's called Love Volleyball, League One volleyball? And there's a couple of pretty big names of Nebraska alums on that team, Larson and Rodriguez. And how do you all collide?
Yeah, so obviously their model is different, being league run and league owned. They are now really this year just starting to do what Major League Volleyball has done since year one in regard to selling local ownership to these franchises, as well as building out a front office staff that is in market. Because before it was just all really run. They had a few people on the ground in each market, but most of that work was done from a central office for their league. And so they're starting to, do more of the MLV model, but Major League Volleyball has been ahead of that curve, a model that people are used to and know. And so they're starting to really kind of replicate what MLB is doing. And so I think they're expanding. It's a fascinating back and forth battle between the two leagues right now.
Yeah.
And everything they're going. And I think for our perspective, just being at that center stage and, setting the standard in everything we do, from player treatment, marketing, corporate sponsorships, I think gave us a leg up from the beginning. And we've really, carried that torch in this pro volleyball movement. And so we really love the spot that we're in right now.
Yeah, New York's got 2 baseball teams and 2 basketballs, and the Bay Area's got 2. Well, they used to have 2 baseball teams, don't anymore. L.A., Chicago. Is this yard, to put it metaphorically, is this yard big enough for 2 big dogs?
Yeah, I think it's shown it can support. I think just the position that we are in and the investment our ownership group is willing to give us is just, I think gives us a leg up. The way we've kind of established our footprint here in Omaha, the state, and the region. But I think Omaha has shown that they obviously love its volleyball, and I think they can support its both teams. So I would say, yeah, I think Omaha's kind of in that Chicago, LA territory where you probably support multiple teams, but I don't think that'll be the case for every market.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as long as you draw 16,000 some folks for a match and average what 10 or 11,000 for matches, I guess maybe you're proving that point.
Yeah, that's it.
And did I get some of those numbers right? Didn't you draw
No,
16-8 or something for a match this year?
yeah, last year was our sellout for our Luck of the Novas match over St. Patrick's Day, and yeah, that was unbelievable. 5-set win over Indy. That was dollar beer night too. It was just an unbelievable night. Like literally everything that could have gone right in terms of how long the match was, how dramatic it all went off without a hitch.
And I suppose there were a couple of 20-hour days leading up to that for the young man who's the director of comms, right?
Yes, well, it's like, and that's always an interesting time of year because you have March Madness going on, and
Hmm.
so trying to schedule and do stuff around that Nebraska's playing, Creighton's in the tournament, but we were in the arena days before, lining every lower bowl seat with a towel because we did a special towel giveaway, and so yes, plenty of long nights leading up into that match. It was well
Yeah.
worth it.
So what does the director of communications, media, and broadcast do? What is your groove and how do you do it?
Yeah, so it's really all hands on deck here at the Supernovas. But as far as what I do specifically, obviously within my title, media relations, so press releases, earned media, everything that you see out on television, print, I'm helping spearhead that communication. And that also includes our website operations, making sure our content on there is always updated. Same with the Supernovas app, and creating new content on there and making sure that it's intuitive for people to use and fun to enjoy. I mean, just recently I spearheaded the launch of Nova's Nation Rewards, our brand new rewards program through the app. And we also just deployed a new newsletter, Nova's Nation Insider, that I'm also helping spearhead. So plenty of new things going on with my role as well. And that's really not even mentioning the broadcast part, which is more in season, but that's broadcast logistics, helping negotiate those local TV deals and making sure when national crews come in, they're well informed and all set up, to deliver a great broadcast. So it's pretty busy still year round. There really isn't too much of an off season. There's always stuff to do here.
And it's nice that you have something alliterative like Nova's Nation to help keep the ear attentive to what you guys are doing. This is not exactly what you trained for in college. You did a lot of writing, you did a lot of broadcasting. I'm not sure when you came out of college here in Lincoln that what exactly you wanted to do, but here you are in this job. And how much of it have you had to learn sort of on the fly?
Yeah, I mean, I was so going back to the beginning when first getting out of college. My first role was a beat writer for Nebraska volleyball and baseball for Inside Nebraska, which was Rebels.com before they got bought by On3. And so being that beat writer, I got an inside look at, or at least the other side of the perspective of media operations. I would say Nebraska Athletic Communications, spearheaded by Keith Mann over there, is one of the best in the country. And so being a reporter and being able to see the setup and accommodations they provide to working media gave me that foundation of knowledge to then go forward with the Supernovas to establish what I want our media operations to look like. And so that was massive in my transition because yeah, you're right, John. I didn't really study to be a really in team communications, and part of that is learning on the fly. We've no secret that we have gone through a few head coaches, and so I've had to spearhead communications when we've had those changes, and that's always a learning experience, especially the first time around when that news wasn't broken by our press release or social post. That was by a media member. And so having to, talk with them about what parts were accurate, what were not, and just making sure everyone was on the same page in terms of that communication. So it's sometimes it's a fire drill and baptism by fire. But that's what I sign up for and what you really do sign up for going in the media field.
Yeah, we try to tell our students on day one that they play the games when other people are not working. but you're working when they play the games, and nights, weekends, holidays, sometimes very long hours. Um, that is the case for you in this business, especially during the season, right?
Yes, I mean, match days alone are at minimum 15, 16 hours. And that's not including just how many, and that's probably including 13-hour regular work days leading up to those matches in the season. And so it is always just foot on the gas when it comes to the season. But while you make that time sacrifice, the relationships and camaraderie you build with people here, people around the league, you don't get that everywhere. And,
Yeah.
and being able, and I think it's different too, being in a startup like this where you are literally helping build the foundation, and the things that you do are then translated to what you can see on a match day. That is what makes this so special.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what the joys of the job are. I already uttered what the challenges are: time and effort and energy, and keeping an innovative spirit and all of those things. But on top of what you've just said, what are the great joys when you sit back and say, "God, I love this job because A, B, and C."
Because I think I mentioned it, is you get to see a direct result of the work you're doing. And I think in sometimes in other jobs, you don't necessarily get to see that. And so being able to witness it, 13, 14 times a year at home matches at CHI is really, really special. And especially the relationships you build, not only with the front office, but, the coaching staff and players, because, it's a different cast each year with the players and sometimes coaches. And so just being able to see that different set of personalities come through and build relationships with is, really cool, let alone the ones that you build with league and other teams. And so it's just like, growing up and even now paying attention to other sports leagues and seeing all the news and everything that happens, and being now within all that happening within other sports league is kind of surreal to think about. Being part of the evolution of pro volleyball, it's just, I could go on, but it's just
Yeah.
really part of something from the ground up.
You mentioned Keith Mann and Nebraska, and they have a decades long, more than century long brand of the Big Red N, and everybody in Nebraska and most people who pay attention to college athletics around the country could tell you what that Big Red N stands for. But 4 years ago, and well, 3.5, 4 years ago, you all have to create something from scratch. Now, you did have the advantage of this being a volleyball state, and I'm not overstating that. This is really, really important to the people of Nebraska. Volleyball is, but you started from scratch. Like, here, we've got to come up with a name, and then an organization, and then we've got to go out and put a winning team on the court, and all of those things. What was it like to try to get so many people, maybe a couple of extra people every day, to recognize what the Supernovas are? What have been the challenges to that?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to putting in the work and pounding the pavement with awareness. Um, I wasn't there quite at the launch, but when our branding, everything was revealed in July of 2023, that is when Jacob Rockoff, our senior director of ticketing, and a couple of our first original players just really hit the ground running in all the community events they went to. And I would say that was kind of the foundation of brand awareness for us. Is we went to probably 250 community events within our first 2 years of existence. And that really paid dividends because we were out there in front of everybody, getting that awareness and people who really haven't heard of us before. And so I think a lot of that has led to our success too. Couple it with the championship our first year, and it really just compounded. And that's why I think you saw our huge jumps, and we're now averaging 10, 11,000 people per match.
Yeah. You talked about working on local radio and TV deals. What are those deals? Where do we hear you, and where do we see you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of local stations around here, Omaha, that stretch across the state. Walnut Radio is our flagship radio partner. They cover and broadcast radio matches and have our coaches show. And so they are really a huge partner in our success to the last couple of seasons. But, that also extends to what is now Usher Media Group. You'll hear commercials and interviews on those set of stations, as well as iHeart here at Omaha. And so, we have our relationships when it comes to, like those match broadcasts with all that, but it also extends to commercial relationships with those other companies around Omaha, which is just really great and huge for us because, you want that blanket coverage of everywhere here in the metro.
And what is the TV? Where do we see you?
Yeah, so from non-national matches, Nebraska Public Media they're just phenomenal. I couldn't say enough of good things about the production and quality that they provide for our matches, as well as the statewide coverage. But that also includes News Channel Nebraska, who has been a massive partner as well over the last couple of years, not only in TV, but they're also radio affiliates across the state. So because of them, we have a 6-state radio network that stretches to a regional radio network now. So those two partners have been instrumental.
So here we are doing this conversation or having this conversation in the middle of August. Season starts in January. What does the Director of Communications, Media, and Broadcasting for a professional volleyball team do in the late part of the summer to get ready to make his job easier in the winter?
Yes, great question. A lot of it is with community events. We have a community events calendar. I'm helping there on site. And so continuing with brand awareness and just, going out and meeting the people and meeting Nova's Nation. And so that's a huge part of our summer. I dive in and help with sponsorship renewal and presentations, gathering stats and data to help support those pitches. And then on more of the comm side is evaluating different areas to attack earned media. I'm already been updating my match notes for the upcoming season. That's, as a professional of communications, kind of your match notes is more of a personal reflection. And so I take that very, very seriously. And so it's always, looking at steps to how those can evolve. And so there's plenty of stuff going on, and that's not even including helping, with those radio and TV deals that, is happening right now as we await kind of more news in regard to our schedule, which should come out here in the next couple of months.
Yeah. And if there's anything that are the three most important things in the media business from those of us who talk and those of you who run communications, and those three words are relationship, right?
Correct. Yep. And that's going out to lunches, it's staying high, sending the, I don't know, just small gifts, for the coverage that you get every season. So it's about keeping up with everybody and making sure they're all well. But, Nebraska Fall Camp is here, and so they're all off and running too.
Yeah, everybody's got lots to do. Well, Jeff, thank you. I appreciate it. Anything else about the Supernovas that I need to know or our audience needs to know?
Well, we're back at CHI Health Center in January, and, it's a loaded roster, I would say, again, this season. We have 6 returners, the most in franchise history: Merritt Beeson, Layla Blackwell from Nebraska, Nora Tabrak, formerly Nora Sis, and then Kiara Russell, who is formerly Kiara Reinhardt. She also got married. And so along with some, international foreign talent, this is going to be another really good roster.
And I should have mentioned, and it sounded like I was rounding it up, and I was, but your coach, Chris McGown, as you do a little bit of homework, it doesn't take long to realize what a playing career he had. Not just coaching, coached BYU and other places, but he played at BYU with 2 names that people will recognize, Kevin Hambley and Hugh McCutcheon. That must have been a terrific team in Provo, Utah. But here's a guy who's been in the business since he was a teenager.
Yeah, and I think that's just going to pay dividends for us. He's a coach's kid too. His dad, Carl, founded the BYU men's volleyball program and won a couple of national titles. And so he comes from a strong volleyball background. And while Nebraska is new to him, that pressure and expectation of greatness has really followed him wherever he's gone. And so it's a new but also familiar environment for him. And he's fit like a glove here so far. It's actually been unbelievable the way he's been willing to dive in and do anything that we ask of him. I mean, when he came here, visited a couple of weeks ago, we had him calling some season ticket members. So it was funny just walking into the office and then seeing him at his desk with a headset on, making those calls. And so he's been phenomenal, and got a great feeling about him and this team this upcoming year.
And there aren't many better things for a communications manager than having a good relationship with his coach.
Yes.
Period. Right?
And can't overstate that.
Yeah. I mean, it is really important. Hey, Jeff, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, John. Always a pleasure.
Jeff Ekstrom is the Director of Communications, Media, and Broadcast for the Omaha Supernovas, who, as we've said a couple of times, start their 4th season in January of 2027. And you'll hear and see much more about them in the coming weeks and months. He's been with us on Watch the Media. I'm John Shrader.